Hey folks, Eric White here with Shane Brown, and today we're going to talk about two concepts. Number one is fencing from the sweeps, and then how that concept actually marries to the idea of Uberlaufen, or overrunning. So first off, I want to point out what Shane and I are using here. Shane has an Albion Cressy. The Albion Cressy is a Sharp, so this is a full-on Sharp. Notice Shane's wearing a regular fencing jacket, a Gambeson, and I'm using an Albion Lichtenauer, so this is a blunt. This is a blunt. So he has a Sharp, I have a blunt. We have no masks on, no gloves, nothing on our legs other than just our pants. And I just want to show you a concept that is really crucial to understanding how to fence with the Lichtenauer system. Now they would wear Gambesons or fencing jackets. They would wear these in a duel, and what they understood was if Shane here adopts a lower guard, that lower guard, as it rises, especially with a false edge or back edge cut, is not going to get through the Gambeson. So Shane's going to go ahead and hit my arm. Notice I'm not dying. Very good. So that's a Sharp. By the way, the Gambeson, I'm not sure you can tell, is just fine. There's nothing on there. Cloth is incredible at being armor. So here's the point. When he adopts a low guard, the only thing he can do, and again, I want to credit Master Aaron Pinnenberg for getting us onto this idea about Alber years ago. His point was that Alber can only be used defensively for a parry. Well, Alber is one of the positions you can use fencing from the sweeps. And so if he adopts a low guard and I adopt a high guard, the concept of Uberlaufen, or overrunning, means I should in fact ignore what he's doing down here and go straight for his head. So if you look at the RDL book, for example, translation by Stephen Chaney, you'll see Ringek, Von Danzig, and Lev all say the same thing. That as his sword drops, all I need to do is make him move towards his head. Notice we're not wearing fencing masks. The point is, I want Shane to feel the desire to protect his head. So he's not relying on the equipment to do it, he's relying on his fencing. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to move around a little bit and in a very controlled way, simulate essentially a drill of me going for his head while Shane is trying to figure out how to come from underneath. And what you're going to notice, I think, is going to be very much in line with what the earlier sources are saying. So here we go. Ready? So. There it is. Notice Shane's fencing from the sweeps. Every single time he has to rise up with that back edge and interact with my sword. It's the only way to protect his head. If he comes at my body from underneath, I'm going to rely on the Gambeson and just stick my arm out. He can hit this all day, but his head now is not protected. So the point of this really is to understand Uberlaufen exists because of the equipment being worn for Bloßfechten, for unarmored fencing. They're not fencing in bathing pants, right? In bathing shorts, in swimwear. They're fencing like this. Maybe they have light gloves on, but that's about it. But this is incredibly effective for blocking or stopping those underhues or undercuts. One more thing to point out, by the way. To fence from the sweeps, because Shane is going to feel the need to protect his head, this is where he's going to interact. Right from here, he's now going to turn or wind the sword and come after me. Do you see? That's where he wants to be. So when he makes a choice to fence from the sweeps, he knows he needs to parry, which is exactly what Alber allows for him. So there's the parry. Beautiful. There's a wind, you see? And that is why fencing from the sweeps and Uberlaufen exist. One complements or helps to qualify the other. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up about that? Can I just ask you, how did you feel, even though this is a blunt, how did you feel about this coming toward your head?
You have to interact with it. You can't ignore it.
Right.
I mean, we can theorize all day about, well, what if I try and go for a thrust or whatever. I think when the rubber hits the road, especially in the context of what we're engaging with, right? We're friends, we're training partners, we're whatever. You're thinking you step into the ring with somebody who is trying to kill you.
Right.
It's not friendly anymore, right? I'm not like, oh, I know he'll pull the hit. I want to see if I can get a cheeky thrust on him. You're worried about protecting yourself. When you see, if I'm low and I see him go high like that, I know where it's coming before he even starts to swing it. There's no chance in hell that I'm getting my sword up in time, unless that's my intention, like Eric mentioned. I want him to go high so that I can get an offset and a cut, or an offset and a wind, or whatever that may be. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Obviously, we can only simulate that so far, but I don't think it's... Anybody who did that wasn't around to do it again, so.
Right. Now, for our intents and purposes, we spar, not with sharps obviously, but with fencing masks, with gloves. We often have elbow protection on, and all sorts of gear, right? And we should. We really should, because everyone needs to go to work the next day. So here's what we need to understand. If your partner in sparring, in free play, adopts a low guard, he adopts a low guard, and comes up with a rising cut to the body or to the arm, and I do this, he's now into my arm here, if you can see, and I do this to the head, this is not a double. It can't be. We've already shown, if Shane wants to come up and rise into my arm, go ahead. There's nothing going on there. It didn't even start to break the gambeson. He could go up as hard as he wants, really. It's not going to break through that. That's the point of the gambeson. But what he has to worry about as he's in that low guard is his head. And because he has to worry about his unprotected head, that's where he's going to end up. So in our purposes, again, when we're sparring, we have to be very cognizant of this. We have to be aware that if someone adopts a low guard and strikes low while the other one strikes high, that is not a double. This can't be a double. This is a win, in fact, for me, and a loss for Shane. But what Shane can do, obviously, just to reiterate for a third or fourth time, is interact with the sword as he sees it. There it is. That's a win for Shane. Very different concept to think about than just simply trying to touch one another. That the touches with the swords are not equal in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you.